Thank you so much for joining us on our news desk on QTV. Here are the headlines. The Law Association of Zambia says if indeed the land given to President Lungu by the Kingdom of Eswatini was a gift, then this does not constitute a breach of Section 21(1)(b) of the Anti-Corruption Act. The Ministry of Finance is in the first quarter of 2019 introducing a warrant funding system aimed at enhancing national budget predictability. Here is now the news in detail. The Law Association of Zambia (LAZ) says it is of the considered view that if indeed the land given to President Edgar Lungu by the Kingdom of Eswatini was a gift, then this does not constitute a breach of Section 21(1)(b) of the Anti-Corruption Act. The association says it has concluded legal research on the matter with a view to assisting the public on interpretation of the relevant law in this matter. In a statement to QTV News today, LAZ says it has followed with keen interest the public debate that has raged following revelation the piece of land granted to President Lungu in the Kingdom of Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. The statement states that in the absence of evidence that the receipt of the gift was preceded by some abuse of position or authority on the President's part, the association say to constitute a breach, and assuming the President is a public officer for the purposes of the Anti-Corruption Act, one would thus have to prove the corrupt element in the act and whether by having accepted the gift, the acceptance was unreasonable or prejudicial to the rights and interests of the government or the nation. The Law Association of Zambia insists that it is clear that there was no public disclosure by President Lungu of this gift prior to its discovery, so much as to warrant questions around the purposes for its grant in the first place. LAZ further states that, consequently, as the gift has been received, it would be befitting of the President as the head of state to relinquish the gift, though received in his personal capacity, to the nation or the Zambian embassy in Eswatini. The association is further of the considered view that there is need for specific legislation or strengthening existing legislation in this issue of gifts to the office of the President and indeed all public officers has become pertinent in the country. The Law Association of Zambia has since called on the Zambia Law Development Commission, charged with mandate of law reform, to lead the law reform in this area in conjunction with all stakeholders, adding that the association pledges to lend its hand to such a law reform. The Ministry of Finance is in the first quarter of 2019 introducing a warrant funding system aimed at enhancing national budget predictability. Introducing a warrant funding system will entail that both the Treasury and the Ministry being aware of the funds available for the Ministry to spend in a preceding period. Secretary to the Treasury, Fredson Yamba, says this will facilitate an effective and predictable commitment to control system. Mr. Yamba says a warrant funding system is important if the Treasury is to support the interventions of each ministry towards addressing overreaching development plans, and he states that introducing this system is also timely as government will be rolling out the input-based budgeting system in the 2019 national budget. The Secretary to the Treasury was speaking this morning at the official opening of the National Development Coordination Committee meeting for the 2019-2021 medium-term expenditure framework.
As you all may be aware, effective budget implementation starts with a credible and realistic budget formulation exercise. In this regard, successful implementation of a budget or a national development plan for that matter requires comprehensiveness and robustness in our prioritization of the needs to include unavoidable and critical expenditure requirements. Let me therefore emphasize that in 2019, we shall not entertain budgets that are outside the set criteria, supplementary budgets, I beg your pardon, that are outside the criteria of unforeseen and unavoidable in nature. The jostling of resources should be at budget preparation and not during budget implementation.
And Secretary to the Cabinet, Dr. Roland Mushika, who officiated at the event, urged participants to come up with policy recommendations for possible inclusion in the 2019 national budget. Dr. Mshike has particularly urged cluster advisory groups and other stakeholders to propose requirements that are key to attaining goals of the 7th National Development Plan.
For each cluster advisory group, and identifying drivers that are critical for accelerating the achievement of the goals and objectives of the 7th National Development Plan. Furthermore, the horizontal strategies cutting across ministries and sectors must harness their available resources critical enough for the success and achievement of the 7th National Development Plan aspiration. At this point, I should emphasize and acknowledge the need to put in place supporting mechanisms to ensure smooth operations of our programs. To this effect, I implore all cluster advisory groups and other stakeholders to make use of available resources and, where necessary, propose requirements which could be missing but key to the successful attainment of the goals of the 7th National Development Plan, Agenda 2030, and Sustainable Development.
The ruling Patriotic Front, PF, has with immediate effect put on hold party elections in Lusaka district until further notice. And the party says party elections in Lusaka province and in particular in the following districts, namely Kafue, Chirundu, Chongwe, Rufunsa and Luangwa, will proceed as scheduled. Addressing journalists on Tuesday evening, PF Deputy Secretary General Mumbipiri says this follows after a meeting chaired by President Edgar Lungu and attended by Vice President Inonge Wina. Munali MP Professor Nkanduluo, Kabwata MP Given Lubinda, Chawama MP Lawrence Schalwe, Kanyama MP Elizabeth Piri, Mandevu MP Jean Kapata, and Lusaka Central MP Margaret Monakatwe. While Matero MP Lloyd Kazia was excused as he had another engagement. Ms. Piri says for Kabwata constituency, elections for the sections and branches have been upheld, while the ward elections have been nullified with immediate effect. She says ward elections for Lusaka Central and Munali constituencies have been nullified, while those held for sections and branches have been upheld. Ms. Piri says the party president has also called for a meeting with all constituencies and Lusaka district to interact with them and avail them a platform to air their concerns. The PF Deputy Secretary General says this has been called for in the spirit of promoting intra-party consultative mechanisms.
Party elections in Lusaka province and in particular in the following districts, namely Kafue, Chirundu, Chongwe, Rufunsa, and Luangwa will proceed as scheduled, while elections in Lusaka district have been put on hold immediately, effect until further notice. Will give guidance as secretaries to the new dates which the elections in these other constituencies will commence. Further, for Kabwata constituency, elections for the section and the branches have been upheld, while the ward elections have been nullified with immediate effect. Ward elections for Lusaka Central and Munadi constituency have also been nullified, while those held for section branches have been upheld. These did not have proper supervision. We did this because at the time these other constituencies were having elections, especially from the branch level. There was no supervision from the election committee. But yesterday in Kabwata, the elections were supervised by the election committee, and that's why we have upheld the elections in Kabwata. Where we have a problem is Munali and Lusaka Central.
Meanwhile, the PF Deputy Secretary General has announced that the mother to PF Secretary General Davis Mwila has died. Food Agriculture Organization FAO Country Representative Dr. George Okechi has expressed confidence that despite experiencing prolonged drought and erratic rainfall during the 2017-2018 farming season, the country is still poised to record a good harvest this year. Dr. Okechi has told Q News that the fact that The country is likely to record a good harvest later this year, even after experiencing some drought, is what makes it stand out as one of the few countries in Southern African region which is food secured. He has observed that the only problem threatening the country's food production is monocropping. Dr. Okechi points out that there is too much dependent on maize crop, hence the need for the country to diversify to other crops that can add value to the national food security. He has since urged government through the Ministry of Agriculture to promote crop diversification so that farmers can reduce dependence on maize and start growing crops such as sorghum, legumes and millet on a large scale if food security is to be sustained.
Compared to other countries, other Southern African countries, Zambia is food secure. The only problem with Zambia is that, there is no much diversification in terms of there isn't much diversification in terms of the food, because when we talk about that we have got enough stocks of food, mainly we refer to maize. And that's why, we are now really talking, even the Minister of Agriculture, we and the government, we really promoting diversification of food so that we can grow other crops like millet, groundnuts, sorghum. We can grow legumes and those kind of things. So this year, our food production was affected slightly because of the erratic rainfall and a prolonged drought. But we are still better off. We are still better off as Zambia compared to other African countries, because despite that, we'll still be able to harvest some good we'll still be able to harvest some good production, well, looking in terms of yields.
The Pensions and Insurance Authority, PIA, has with immediate effect closed down 2 insurance companies due to insolvency and has since placed them under compulsory liquidation. The insurance companies which have been placed under compulsory liquidation are Focus Life Assurance Limited and A+ Assurance Limited. This follows consideration of statement of affairs of the assets and liabilities of both insurance companies, which revealed that both entities were insolvent. PIA Communications Manager Doreen Kambanganji tells QTV News that the compulsory liquidation is in accordance with the relevant provisions of the Insurance Act No. 27 of 1997, as amended by Act No. 28 of 2005, as read with Chapter 7 of the Banking and Financial Services Act, CAP 387. Ms. Kambanganji says this is also in exercise of the powers contained in Section 71 of the Insurance Act, as read with Section 101 of the Banking and Financial Services Act. She says the stakeholders in the 2 companies have been given 30 days in which to file in any objection to the action taken by the authority, and she has since called on members of the public to only acquire insurance products and services to licensed insurance companies.
This follows a consideration by the PIA of their assets and also their liabilities, and it was revealed during this process that they were actually insolvent and therefore could not continue operating in the market. Our law is very specific when it comes to insolvent companies. They are not allowed to continue operating in the insurance market. And so what we've done is that we've advised all the stakeholders that have interest in these insurance companies to file in any objection that they may have within 30 days to this action that has been taken by the Pensions and Insurance Authority. And let me take this opportunity to also just advise the general public that they take notice of the licensed insurance companies. Every year we publish the list of licensed insurance entities, and these names are also listed on our website. It's very, very important that when you're buying insurance, you actually buy it from an entity that is licensed by the Pensions and Insurance Authority. That way, you are assuring yourself that if anything happens to that insurance company, you'll actually be protected by the PIA. But if you buy insurance from a company that has not been given a license by the Pensions and Insurance Authority, then you're going to have problems when it comes to actually getting your claims.
Minister of Tourism and Arts Charles Banda has refuted allegations that Zambia has overturned the 2016 decision to suspend the brutal killing of 2,000 hippos in the world-famous Luangwa Valley. Mr. Banda says the culling quota has been agreed at not more than 250 hippos per year and not 2,000 as reported in some sections of the media. He says out of the 13,000 total population of the species, what will be culled is just the excess of this number. The minister states that the reason for killing of hippos is to control the hippo population on the Luangwa River so as to maintain a suitable habitat for other aquatic species and wildlife in general. He says the press release that was generated by Born Free Foundation and is currently circulating on social media as well as being published by various media houses is not the true picture. The minister says the fact of the matter is that in 2015, the Department of National Parks and Wildlife, then Zambia Wildlife Authority ZAWA, signed a 5-year contract with Mawe Adventures Limited to kill hippos along the Luangwa River. He said the Department of National Parks and Wildlife is shocked that killing is being raised as a very serious matter now and that the matter is being politicized to the extent where the current Zambian government is being blamed for allowing this activity. This is contained in a statement issued to QFM News by Ministry of Tourism and Arts Public Relations Officer Skabilo Kalembwe.
This was due to the fact that there had been an agreement to reduce the population of the hippos in the Luangwa Valley to levels of the carrying capacity. It was a preemptive strategy to avoid anthrax disease, which is endemic to the area. So this was actually a strategy because what we didn't want was the dying of hippos in numbers because of the disease. We thought we would have made certain measures which were actually going to be beneficial to both the Zambia Wildlife Authority and also the community. So Mawe Adventures is a registered company with 48% shares owned by Zambians and 52% owned by South Africans. The killing of hippos was actually suspended in 2016 due to concerns raised by the stakeholders and as well as operational problems.
Barclays Bank Zambia has over the last few years invested over 8 million kwacha to reach about 13,000 youths across the country as it targets 100,000 youths. In the next 3 years, bank managing director has announced and Barclays Bank has donated sanitary pads worth over 10,000 kwacha to young girls at the Chipata Community School as a way of touching the lives of young people in communities and easing the girls' attendance of school. Speaking on the sidelines of the donation, Bank Managing Director Mijinga Melu said the bank's shared growth citizenship agenda is built on the receipt of the precept of adding value in the various communities which the bank operates in. Mrs. Melu has stated that this year the bank has amplified its activities by launching We Care initiative, where it has extended its scope to other assistance in hospitals, prisons and other areas where the more vulnerable community can be reached. She is therefore optimistic that the gesture of donating sanitary pads to vulnerable girls in the community will help the girls focus on their studies and in turn positively contribute to the growth of the country.
In Zambia, like many other African countries, a high number of adolescent girls miss out school when they have their period as they cannot afford good sanitary hygiene. Apart from sanitary supplies, insufficient water and sanitation facilities in schools are also a key factor contributing.
We apologize for the wrong bite. And Zambia Open Schools Vice Chairperson for the Board of Governors, Francis Muyambango, commended Barclays Bank for honoring to their mandate of social corporate responsibility and particularly targeting girls in community schools. Mr. Muyambango has noted the need for private sector participation in educating the girl child, stating that government cannot do it alone. Government says absenteeism of girls in schools due to lack of menstrual sanitary facilities is a major hindrance to development. Speaking during the commemoration of Menstrual Management Day in Kafue, Ministry of Gender Director Sandra Ndlovu said there is need to overcome the myths surrounding the menstrual cycle, saying that is a normal biological process. Ms. Ndlovu says this is the day that is aimed at breaking the silence on matters of menstrual hygiene and the impact it has on girls while in schools. Speaking at the same event, UNICEF Deputy Country Representative Shadrack Omo said in order to bridge the gender gap, there is need to promote menstrual health management in the country. Mr. Omo notes that good menstrual health is crucial for health, education, dignity and economic empowerment. Details are in this report.
In Zambia, like many other African countries, a high number of adolescent girls miss out school when they have their period as they cannot afford good sanitary hygiene. Apart from sight and surprise, insufficient water and sanitation facilities in schools are also a key factor contributing to adolescent girls dropping out of schools. According to reports, most girls find it difficult to manage their menstruation environment without water and convenient sanitation facilities such as washrooms and sanitary disposal points. It is for this reason that in 2014, the United Nations declared 20th May as a day to commemorate menstrual hygiene management. Recognized globally, Menstrual Hygiene Day promotes awareness of menstruation as a normal biological process and addresses the need for adequate facilities and products that promote quality menstrual hygiene management. These year's celebrations were held in Kafue district under the theme Empowerment through Menstrual Health Hygiene. The government was represented by Minister of Gender Director Sandra Ndlovu, who said there is need to promote awareness on such important matters.
This day is aimed at helping the silence and strengthen partnerships in raising awareness to recognize not only the important role that global menstrual hygiene management plays in enabling women and girls' welfare, but also realize their full potential. Further, there cannot be a better way than this to accord them their well-deserved dignity for social and economic development.
UNICEF is one of the stakeholders championing for the promotion of good menstrual hygiene for school-going girls, as this is an important aspect of good health. The organization was represented by Shadrack Omo, who highlighted some of the alarming statistics.
And I would like just to share some statistics to back that statement. Overall, a woman spends 2,100 days between the age of 12 and 45 years in experiencing menses. This translates to an equivalent of 6 years of her life, which if she does not get adequate, affordable, and appropriate access to materials and facilities, she will suffer from poor menstrual hygiene that will restrict her movement and self-confidence.
And this PUPT called for more sensitization efforts with regards to menstrual hygiene in schools, as it hinders girls from attending class during their menstrual cycle.
Thank you for sensitizing us on the misconceptions associated with menstruation arising from traditions and culture which attach a negative attitude towards menstruation. Madam, thank you for making us learn that menstruation is simply a biological process which ought not to be stigmatized, but rather understood as a natural process.
Event participants learned how to make menstrual pads, watch education plays, and listen to poems based on menstrual hygiene. Attendees also took time to view displays of locally produced menstrual hygiene products. For QTV News, Albert Mpeze in Kafue District.
Opposition National Restoration Party NAREP President Elas Chipimo has recognized the need for the government to include in the national education curriculum one of the country's freedom fighters in the name of Zanko Mpundu Mtembo as a way of honoring the role he played with other freedom fighters during the country's struggle for independence. In an interview with Q News, Mr. Chipimo has noted with concern that many history books in the country have not captured Mr. Mtembo despite the significant role he played during the struggle for independence. Mr. Chipimo feels government has neglected Mr. Mpundu, saying he is treated as though he has passed on when he is still alive. Mr. Mtembo, 86, was born in Mbala district, and his statue of him breaking chains is at the Freedom Statue along Independence Road in Lusaka, and also on the country's note in picture form as a symbol of freedom and national identity. We have details in the following report.
This is Zanko Mpundu Mtembo, the 82-year-old freedom fighter whose statue is at the Freedom Statue at Kamwala and is one of the statesmen that the nation can look up to. Though many Zambians may not be alive to this fact, this man is still alive. Last Friday marked Africa Freedom Day, a day to reflect about the gains that the African continent has made. It is an undeniable fact that Zambia's freedom fighters need recognition because of their efforts in bringing freedom to the nation. This gallant fighter, despite his efforts towards the freedom that we are enjoying today, feels neglected. Mr. Mtembo, who was arrested and handcuffed with chains in full view of 18 armed soldiers, also narrated during Meet the Man Behind the Statue that he was ordered to break from chains or to be shot dead.
Now, Zanko, Zanko, come on, break the chain. If you fail, shall shoot you. Namuna you next surrounded with 18 army officers.
Nomba open school limeta mulapwisho kutinda mwale tinda. Abana kukula nangu ine pano na abantu abengi abena Zambia kuti bafo kwishwa because valatandikana sana kushe cheni imwapupirya. Yali yanshimbi ya plastiki ya temali ya yali yanshimbi cheni. Yali yanshimbi. This chain was not plastic. It was a steel chain that this man over here managed to break. So te afeki.
Awe yona ibide. Na mpaka nka kaikadira muri wani nini nka tudini nka filili nka ndeti ntafeni furwa nomtumana utana chani.
Meanwhile, the opposition National Restoration Party organized a Meet Zanko Mpundu Mtembo fundraising dinner in Lusaka. During this meeting, NARO President Elas Chipimo Jr. proposed that Mr. Mtembo be added to the Zambian education curriculum as a way of remembering our forefathers' contributions to Zambia's liberty.
It's actually my prayer that we will go beyond honoring him today by doing everything we can to ensure that we change our history curriculum in this country to include the story of Mr. Mpundu Mtembo. A nation that does not have roots in its own history will always be open to being taken by any new culture that comes into this country.
Mr. Mtembo was born in Mbala district in Luapula province and is the second Zambian to get the Zambian National Registration Card after first Republican President Dr. Kenneth Kaunda.
Number one, nikaunga. Number 2 ni. Number 3 ni bamu nikaunga sukari. Number 4 ni ba shaimo ni mwasaka kwe. Number 5 ni ba hapa mgala. Mleke awe ndikuwa mekusheguli. Tuwa mwisho. Vanani ba mgala. Ba Paul James Karichini. Paul James Karichini. Ewa advice to lead the Zambia Social Congress. Ule mnaye. Baada kwetu eba aliba mission la gereza. Number 6 ni ba bini tandika kamanga. Chitandika kamanga. Barule chitandika kamanga. Number 5 ni number 6. Number 7 ni ba edito miskalumbi. Right. Number 8 ni ba grezu epo alitabafu. Epo Ndeki number 5 number 8. Number 9 ni ba leushija changufu. Eba yoma trustees muzambi afunisa kombolisi.
Favorite Kalando reporting for QTV News in Lusaka.
The National Union of Public and Private Educators of Zambia, NAPEZ, has called on the Teaching Council of Zambia, TCZ, to ensure that teachers are allowed to pay teaching license fees in installments. NAPEZ Public Relations Officer Jacqueline Nawila has commended the Teaching Council of Zambia for extending the deadline for the payment of teaching license fees. Ms. Nawila says the move is proactive as it will enable teachers to put their resources together and pay the fees. She has, however, pleaded with the council to ensure that the teachers start paying their license fees in installments so that the measures is not seen as a burden on them.
We are very grateful because at least they heard the cries of the stakeholders, and this shows that they are willing to work with stakeholders, and we do appreciate the fact that they are bringing sanity to the teaching fraternity. In view of this, we also want to further request Teaching Council of Zambia to allow the teachers to be paying in installments. As you know, economic hardship for teachers are a reality. We can't run away from that. Hence, we are requesting that they also consider that teachers pay in installments.
Central Province Permanent Secretary Chandakabwe has disclosed that government is in the process of constructing 2 airports for cargo planes in the province. Mr. Kabwe has encouraged investors to explore the potential and opportunities that the Central Province has for investments. Central Province Permanent Secretary Chandakabwe says Central Province has enormous potential for investment in energy, agriculture and mining. Mr. Kabwe says besides being a hub for both railway and road transport, the Central Province is about to have 2 airports for cargo planes. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Kabwe has disclosed that he will soon be in receipt of letter authorizing the construction of the airports. Mr. Kabwe says the cargo airports will be constructed in Kabwe and Teji. He states that all these are opportunities that should woo investors to come and invest in the province. Mr. Kabwe says investors are encouraged to attend the province's first ever investment expo.
We've just concluded now, I'll be getting a letter which has authorized us now to construct a cargo airport in Kabwe and another one in Teji under PPP. So these are opportunities for people to come and invest. And this is why we are saying, come and attend the 2018 Investment Expo in Central Province from the 16th to the 20th to come and appreciate and look at what opportunities you can come and invest. In the mining sector, we have a lot of opportunities. We are one of the provinces with high grade in manganese. We are one of the provinces in this country with high grade in gold. So those are opportunities for people to come and invest. We have huge chunks of land in terms of agriculture.
The ruling PF says it is not true that the Zambia police is giving it fair treatment than other political parties contesting the Chilanga parliamentary by-election. Member of the campaign team in Chilanga, Horace Longwe, says as far as campaigns have continued in the constituency, no political party has been treated better than the other by the police. Mr. Longwe says having been on the ground where campaigns are taking place, He has actually observed that all political parties contesting the parliamentary seat are campaigning freely. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Longwe says, in his view, the outcome of the by-election will therefore depend on the past performances of each participating political parties. Mr. Longwe, who is also a former PF Lusaka province chairperson, says people will judge for themselves which political party has worked or not since the 2016 general elections. And that story at item concludes our news this evening. But before I take a run, here is a recap of our stories of the headlines. The Law Association of Zambia says if indeed the land given to President Lungu by the Kingdom of Eswatini was a gift, then this does not constitute a breach of Section 21(1)(b) of Anti-Corruption Act. The Ministry of Finance is in the first quarter of 2019 introducing a warrant funding system aimed at enhancing national budget predictability. That'll do it for the news. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye. God bless.